Good morning. Welcome to the next video. Today we are going to discuss with electrocardiograph. Electrocardiograph. So what is basically a electrocardiograph? It is basically a machine in which we detect the person's working of heart. Okay, so how the auricle are taking the time, the ventricles are taking the time, what is the time period of the joint diastole, that is done with the help of the electrocardiograph. So electrocardiograph is basically the instrument. The names are a little bit confusing. Electrocardiograph is the instrument by which we can detect the working of heart, and electrocardiogram is basically the graphical representation. This is basically the graphical representation which we are going to see of the heart. Okay, so electrocardiogram and electrocardiograph, in which we judge the activity of the human heart. So the graph constitutes of the following waves. Here we can consider this as a baseline. This is a baseline, and in this baseline we have got a little bit of P wave. Suppose this is a P wave. Okay, so P wave, and here you can have the QRS, and then again when it is going slight little bit, it will go here and it will like this. Okay, so then it will be coming downwards. So this wave is called the P wave. Then this point is called the Q point. This is called the R point. This is called the S, and this point is called the T point. Okay, so as we all know that the conduction of an impulse is being done when the heart contracts or heart relaxes. So we have to understand what do you mean by the terms polarization. Then we have got the depolarization word. Okay, and then we have got the repolarization. So what is the meaning of these? Polarization. So these are the words which we will deal while studying this. So polarized means relaxed state. Original state means the relaxed state. Depolarized means the systolic state or the contraction, and the repolarization means the diastolic state. So with the help of this, we are going to see what events are occurring during the QT time period or the QRS time period and during the T time period. So what happens is, if you remember the structure of a heart, this was the structure, and in this we were knowing ki here smaller bit, little bit. So this was the structure, and here we were having the SA node. So what happens basically is the SA node will generate the impulse and it will spread it to the auricles. So in the P stage or during the P time, there will be the SA node generation. SA node will generate an impulse, and this impulse will be traveled to the auricles. So the time period will be the P time period and then the QR time period. Till the QR time period, when the SA node will transfer the impulse to the directly to the auricle and then to the AV node. First it will transfer it to the auricle. So during the QR stage, this time period, the auricles will be in the contracted state. So the auricles will be in the contracted state. Okay, so this time period when the auricles contract is called the depolarization of the auricles. So P represents the start of the SA node impulse, then it will be traveling to the auricles so that the auricles will contract. This is called the depolarized state of the auricles. So here the auricles will be depolarized. Now what will happen, as and when the impulse will be transmitted to the AV node also, and we know inside we have got the AV bundle. Okay, so these bundle of ASM and then the Purkinje fibers, we have discussed this in the earlier videos also. So what happens, the impulse of SA node will be going into the AV node, and finally it will be reaching to the ventricles. So in the following stages, what happens is during the time period of R, S, the impulse will be traveling to the AV node. The impulse will be traveling to the AV node, and after this, till the time period from RS to the T time period, the ventricles will be in a state of contraction. The ventricles will contract in this period. So we can also call it as ventricular depolarization. We can also call it as ventricular depolarization. And in this state, when the T time arises, the ventricles will be again the time of rest. So that time period when the contracted auricles again gain the relaxed state, it is called the repolarization. It is called repolarized state. So with the help of this, we can judge the working of heart also. How the auricles are contracting, how the auricles are relaxing, how the ventricles are contracting, and how the ventricles are relaxing. So as we all know, the time period for this to occur, for the auricles to be contract, the time period was, what was the time period? It was 0.1 second. The time period was 0.1 second, and during this time period our ventricles are relaxed. And for this to complete, for the ventricles to contract, the time period required was 0.3 second. And for both of them, after this, what is going to happen after T? Both the auricles and ventricles will be in a state of joint diastole. So the time period for the joint diastole to occur will be 0.4. So from this electrocardiograph, we can judge the working of the heart, how the heart is beating, what time period is required for the auricles to contract, for the ventricles to contract, and for the joint diastole. So with the help of this electrocardiogram, this activity is being judged. And if these vibrations or if these waves are taking a longer time period and the ECG is not proper on the graph, it means that the patient is having in some problem of the heart working. So it requires a certain difference, and it is being done by a professional cardiologist and all. So this was all about it. And the P, R and T waves. The P, R and T waves are called positive waves. These waves are called positive waves because these are the above baselines. And the Q and the S, Q and S waves. The Q and S waves are called negative waves. Why are they called negative waves? Because they are below the baselines. Okay. So this is all about the electrocardiograph. Electrocardiograph is just an instrument which is detecting the activity of the heart, and electrocardiogram is basically the graphical representation which helps us to detect the activity of the heart. Okay, so this was all about the ECG, and the next topic which we will see is the regulation of heart activities. Now how the heart is being regulated, let's check it out. The most important part of our brain, which is also called a small brain, so it is called medulla oblongata, and the regulation is done with the help of autonomic nervous system also. And we all know that autonomic nervous system has got two parts, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. So regulation of cardiac activity. So cardiac activity is regulated first by our brain, and the brain part which regulates is most important part. First is the medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata, it is also called the respiratory center controller. Then it also oblongata. Okay, it also controls the cardiac center. Then we have got the autonomic nervous system. Now autonomic nervous system has got two parts. One is the sympathetic. Autonomic nervous system has one called the sympathetic, and then we have got the parasympathetic nervous system. So we have already discussed this that are nerve impulse conduction, heart impulse conduction is what done with the help of nodal tissues. So there is no one to generate the impulse. The nodal tissues are themselves responsible for the generation of impulse. So a heartbeat is basically myogenic in nature. It is discussed in the earlier lectures also. So the one important thing which will regulate our heart activity is the medulla oblongata, and the next is the autonomic nervous system. So what are these going to do? They are going to increase the ventricular contraction or the beating of the heart. Then it will either increase the cardiac activity or decrease the cardiac activity. So sympathetic nervous system is going to increase the cardiac output. It is going to increase the cardiac output, and as a result of which the heart activity will increase. And the parasympathetic, it will decrease the ventricular contraction, and the cardiac output or the cardiac activity, it will increase, and this one is going to decrease. So parasympathetic will decrease the cardiac activity. So from these two things we know that medulla oblongata and the autonomic nervous system functions. Now the one more important thing, certain pituitary hormones are there. Pituitary hormones, anterior pituitary hormones are there, which are going to regulate this. They are basically adrenaline. They are pituitary hormones which also regulate. So this is also adrenal medullary hormones, not actually pituitary. That was the medullary hormones that was regulating adrenal medullary hormones. So adrenal medullary hormones produces adrenaline. What do they produce? Adrenaline. Adrenaline and noradrenaline. Adrenaline and noradrenaline will produce these hormones, and they also regulate the cardiac activity. As when we are in a condition of fear, fight and flight, the level of the adrenaline hormone increases, and either we increases our BP or our cardiac activity. So the things which were regulating our heart activity are the medulla oblongata, then the autonomic nervous system, and finally the adrenal medullary hormones, that is the adrenaline and noradrenaline. One is going to increase, the other is going to subside it. So these two were also working in the same manner. They were changing the ventricular rate of contraction, due to which the cardiac output was also affected. It was increasing parasympathetic nervous system, and the parasympathetic nervous system was decreasing it. Okay. Let's move on to the next topic. The next topic which we have to discuss is the portal systems. Portal systems, we have got the two portal systems which we have to discuss in the human beings. Cardiac portal system we have already done. So we are going to deal with the portal system. Portal circulation, rather we can say this. So what is portal circulation? Where the blood is not transporting into the heart directly, but from one organ to the other organ, then that circulation is called the portal circulation. When the blood is transported from the heart, but it is going to some other organ, followed by the other organ, then it is going into the heart, and that system is called portal circulation. In short, you can also write it as transport of blood from organ to organ. Okay, so that is the portal circulation. We have got two portal circulations to discuss. First is the hepatic portal circulation. Hepatic portal circulation, from the name we can judge that something is related to the liver. As you all know that when we digest the food, it is the intestine which are going to absorb everything. Intestines are going to absorb everything. Now there are some things which need to be transferred to the liver. Why it has to be transported to liver? For example, fat is there. For example, glycogen is there. Certain other things are there. They need to be transported to the liver. Rather than transporting it to the whole blood, and blood is transported to whole part of the body. So intestines transferred some of their nutrient directly to the liver, and from the liver it will be reaching to the heart. Then the heart is going to pump everything to other body parts. So what is happening here is we are basically doing the unloading. What are we doing? We are doing the unloading of certain nutrients which we don't want to be transported to all parts of the body. So the intestine are going to absorb, and then the intestine is going to transfer it to the liver. Liver will absorb it, take it, and the liver will transport the blood to other heart, and then from the heart to all other parts of the body. So the veins which is responsible for this is the hepatic vein, which is helping in the hepatic portal circulation. So it's very important. Then next is, as per your NCERT, it's not given, but it was important. So then next is hypophyseal portal circulation. So hypophyseal portal circulation is related to hypothalamus and the pituitary. So hypothalamus, it is the master gland. So I'm going to rub this little bit. Hypothalamus, as it is a master gland, it is going to transfer the releasing hormones. The hypothalamus, we all know that this is a master gland. So hypothalamus, master gland. So then it will release certain releasing hormones. It is going to release releasing hormones like growth hormone, releasing hormone, okay, adrenocorticotropic releasing hormone. So why to transfer these hormones in the blood itself, as they have to work with the pituitary? So what is going to happen, instead of transferring the releasing hormone directly into the blood, the hypothalamus transfers it to the pituitary. Pituitary receives it and it leaves the blood. And it leaves the blood which is devoid of the releasing factors, and this blood will be transported to the heart. So what is happening? We can see that hypothalamus, one organ, it is transferring blood to the other organ, that is the pituitary, and then pituitary receives the releasing hormones and then it transfers the blood finally to the heart. So such type of circulation, when there is transfer of blood from one organ to the other, leaving the heart, it is called the portal circulation. So this was about the hypophyseal portal circulation. So it includes the both hepatic portal circulation and hypophyseal portal circulation. It was involving the hormones, and that was involving the storage of certain glucose, glycogen, fat, so that the liver can carry out and make some other different products. Okay, so this was all about the portal circulation. Now we will discuss something little about the blood pressure. As you all know, blood pressure is a pressure which is exerted by the blood on the wall of the arteries. When the ventricles pump the blood to the, what is ventricles, ventricles are the distributing chambers. The ventricles are going to throw out the blood on the arteries. So that pressure which is exerted by the blood on the wall of arteries, it is called blood pressure. Blood exerting pressure. Blood exerting pressure on the wall of arteries. It is called blood pressure. BP. Okay. So we can also call it as arterial pressure. Arterial pressure. Now it is measured by an instrument called as sphygmomanometer. Manometer, which was being discovered by the scientist Korotkov. Korotkov was the scientist who discovered the sphygmomanometer. And a sphygmomanometer has got mercury filled it inside it, and it has got a cuff which has to be worn on the biceps, and then it measures with the help of a pump is there, and its working is different. So it is done with the help of physicians and all. We need to understand there are two types of pressures, diastolic and systolic. So systolic blood pressure is the pressure of contraction, of the auricles and ventricles. So systolic blood pressure, when it is measured in the sphygmomanometer, it comes out to be 120 mm of Hg. That is the, and diastolic pressure it comes out to be 80 mm of Hg. Now if your blood pressure is this 120 upon 80 mm of Hg, so your blood pressure is normal. Okay, when you are in a state of walking or something, this kind of blood pressure is considered to be normal. But with age, as your age progresses, after 50 years of age, there is a slight rise in the blood pressure, that is 140 to 100. So as the age increases, the blood pressure also increases. And we know that what is the blood pressure? The pressure exerted by the blood on the walls of the artery. So what happens is, with the time period, our arteries doesn't get relaxed. Okay, they become tight, they are not flexible enough. So what happens is, it exerts a greater pressure. That is why the 140 to 100 mm of Hg is considered as an ideal blood pressure of a 50-year old human being. Okay, so this is it about the blood pressure. And when the blood pressure of a normal human being raises above 140 and 80 mm of Hg, then that patient is considered of having a hypertension. That disease is called a hypertension. Now what is hypertension? When the blood pressure increases above 140 and suppose 90 mm of Hg, then that condition is called hypertension. So this is all about the blood pressure. So normal value of blood pressure is 120 and 80 mm of Hg. Due to certain reasons, or when we run or when we do exercise, our blood pressure keeps on increasing. But there is no matter. But if your blood pressure is continuously increasing, then there is a problem that your heart must not be functioning well. So next topic which we are going to discuss here is the disorders. The disorders of our hearts. Disorders or the problems or the diseases related to our circulatory system. So 3 to 4 disorders here we have to discuss. Disorders of circulatory system. Okay, so the first disorder we have right now discussed, that is the hypertension. When a patient's blood pressure increases above 140 and 100 mm of, or 90, suppose 90 mm of Hg, then that condition is called hypertension. 120 was the ideal value of it, and if it is increased above 140, the systolic blood pressure goes above 140 and the diastolic blood pressure goes above 90, then that condition is called hypertension. Now whenever there is a hypertension, it not only affects your heart, but it also affects your brain as well as the kidney. So the BP should be kept regulated by lowering the amount of salt and all. We can regulate the amount of BP. We can normalize the blood pressure, and if a person is having below 120 and the systolic and below 80 the diastolic, so that patient is called having a hypotension blood pressure. It means its BP is going below. Such people should be taken a dose of coffee and certain salt agents or certain sweetening agents they can take. Okay, so that was about hypertension. Then the next disease which we have to discuss is the coronary artery disease. We can also say it as CAD, coronary artery disease. Now what happens in these diseases? Coronary artery disease is a problem whenever there is ischemia. Now what do you mean by ischemia? When the blood does not reaches that place, the supply of blood is reduced to that blood vessel, that leads to the condition called as ischemia. Why does this condition occurs? The condition of ischemia, what is the problem with this case? It is a reduced supply of blood. Ischemia means it is a reduced blood supply to a area or a blood vessel. So how can we deal with this ischemia? What are the conditions responsible for this ischemia? There are two conditions. First, we can say that it is only a one condition. That one condition is arteriosclerosis. Arteriosclerosis. Now what is this arteriosclerosis? There is a narrowing narrowing of blood vessels. When the blood vessels narrowing of the blood vessels. Now why these blood vessels get narrow? Due to the deposition of calcium, cholesterol or fattening agents. So this occurs called as arteriosclerosis. Suppose this is your artery and your lumens of the artery, it is getting the walls of the arteries are getting thicker day by day. So what is going to happen? Ultimately, the supply of oxygen will be reduced. The blood supply will be hindered and the supply of oxygen will be reduced. This was the case of arteriosclerosis. But what happens in atherosclerosis? These two terms are used simultaneously but has got a little differences there. So whenever there is a case of atherosclerosis, the deposition of calcium occurs here. Suppose here it is the deposition occurring. What will happen? The lumen of the arteries are getting narrow and the blood will flow with a jerk. It is going to have very less space. So what happens is arteriosclerosis occurs due to the deposition of calcium ions or suppose fat and cholesterol. So this lead to the narrowing of the lumen of the blood vessels. Okay, arteriosclerosis basically includes your arteries. But when we talk about atherosclerosis, it leads to the deposition of calcium, fat and cholesterol on the inner side of the lumen of the blood vessels. So this leads to the condition called as coronary artery disease. Okay, then next condition which we have to discuss is the angina pectoris. Now what happens in angina pectoris? Angina pectoris is itself not a disease. It is a condition which occurs due to ischemia. Now what happens in ischemia we have already discussed. In angina pectoris there is a stabbing pain which spread out from the heart to the left side of our hand, left side of our limb. The pain rises, the pain shoots from the heart to the left side of our body, and this occurs due to decreased supply of blood. And what is the result for that? And what is the reason for that? The reason for this is both arteriosclerosis and atherosclerosis. So this angina pectoris occurs in, it can occur to any age, but it occurs in the middle-aged women and men. Middle-aged man and women. So what happens in this case is a stabbing pain, a stabbing or shooting pain, from heart to the left side of the shoulders and limb, and this is due to the reduced supply of blood, which may lead in future to the coronary artery disease. Okay, then the next condition which we have to discuss is the heart failure. Now what is heart failure? Heart failure, do not misconcept the condition of heart failure with the heart attack. They both are the different things. Heart failure occurs due to congestion of the blood vessels. When our blood vessels do not supply a good amount of blood, then the heart do not receive a good amount of blood and it stops working due to the reduced supply of blood. So then that condition is called heart failure. Then you can also call it as myocardial infarction. We can also call it as myocardial infarction. Now what happens in heart attack? Heart attack is a total different condition. In heart attack, myocardial infarction is also called as heart attack. What happens in heart attack is stops beating. Our heart stops beating. Heart stops beating. Why does it stops beating? Because any of the blood vessel is damaged. Blood vessels get damaged. So our heart stops working. Then that condition, when the heart does not work, then that condition is called a heart attack. Okay. So we have done with the hypertension. that is when the blood pressure increases above 120 and 80 mm of Hg, then that considered is called hypertension. Coronary artery disease is due to ischemia, that is the reduced blood supply, and the reason for this was arteriosclerosis, when the blood vessels get narrow, and one of the reasons is atherosclerosis, in which the deposition of calcium, fat and cholesterol occurs inside the lumen of the blood vessels. And then angina pectoris, it is also due to the ischemia, when there is a stabbing pain from the heart to the left side of the shoulders and the limbs. It can occur to any age of people, but especially in the middle woman age and in the men age. When the heart failure, it is called congestion. It occurs due to the congestion of blood vessel, when the heart does not receive a good supply of blood. When that occurs in the heart failure, it is called congestive heart failure disease. And heart attack, when the heart does not receive blood, it stops beating, then that condition is called heart attack. So here we have finished with the chapter. So these were the points which were being discussed and the body fluids and circulation. Thank you for seeing the lecture.